Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 6 of Reading Class, Remote Learning Edition. We are in the home stretch. There's only 6 more weeks left of school. Fourth quarter is underway, so the work that you're doing right now for your classes is going towards your credit or no credit grades for fourth quarter. That said, I do want to thank everybody who's been doing their best during this time. We know, the teachers, the administrators, we all know that this is a really tough time for everybody. So, whatever your case may be, whatever you're going through, if there's anything that we can do to help, please reach out to myself, to Mrs. Jensen, and to any of the teachers. We will do whatever we can to help you. If you are struggling with the computer, if you need help with internet access, if you know someone who still hasn't gotten a computer, they're available at the school for technology support every Tuesday from 9 to 12. So please just keep that in mind if you run into any issues. So I want to remind everybody that you're expected to do your 45 minutes of iReady each week. So I had, I think, 23 of you sign on last week. As more people get access to the internet and to using their computer, I hope to see that number go up. Maybe we could do a couple of incentives before the end of the school year. Again, we've only got 6 more weeks, so we just want to try to make the most of it, even if this isn't how we had hoped to end the year. So today I've got another text for you. I uploaded it yesterday on Teams, and I've got a short mini lesson that I'm going to do right now before I go ahead and read the text with you. So today we're going to be talking about plot and theme in literature. These are all topics that we've touched on before. Today is going to be about tying them together and using those skills that we've developed in order to make sense of a kind of a little bit longer but very satisfying short story. So our target standards that we're working on are RL 61, 62, and 63. The goal for today is to be able to describe the stages of plot in a short story, make inferences about the characters, and identify the theme. These are things that we've touched on a little bit in the past and we'll continue working with in some of our future lessons. So, what is plot when we're talking about plot? Remember earlier in the year when we started working on our summaries for independent reading? I talked to you guys about the 5 stages or the 5 elements of literature. Um, every story has these 5 pieces that make it a story, and plot is one of them. It's the events of a story that unfold in a particular order. Most of the time, stories have a distinct beginning, middle, and end. The different events that make up the story are referred to as the plot. So, plot works alongside characters and setting and conflict and theme to make a story what it is. And that's for written texts, video games, movies. Most of these texts that are story based will have some kind of a plot. So, in order to understand the stages of plot, we need to touch on one of the other elements of stories that we talked about, which is conflict. So, conflict we usually think of as 2 opposing forces. And in many cases, that's true. You know, when you read a comic book, you're used to seeing a superhero and a villain, a good guy and a bad guy. That isn't always the case with a story. So, the broader way to understand what a conflict is a problem that the main character has to solve. The conflict is introduced in the first part of the story to catch the reader's interest. Because as much as we might like a setting or might like a character, we don't really care about what happens in a story until there's some problem that we need to see the character work through, whether it's an external problem, with opposing forces, or whether it's something inside the character, him or herself, that they have to go through. As readers, our question is, what will the main character do to resolve the conflict? And it's that question, what will the character do, that keeps us moving through the text and makes us interested to find out what happens in the end. So the 5 stages of plot can be described by this graph. The first stage is exposition. Exposition is introducing the reader to the characters and the setting and getting oriented to the basic situation. Where that little bend is, where it starts moving upward, that's where the conflict is introduced. Because once there's a problem, we want to find out what happens next. So the next steps that the character takes, that's described as the rising action. The rising action leads to the climax, or the most interesting or exciting part of the story. And it might not be exciting in the way that a big superhero battle is exciting, but it'll involve characters confronting their problem, making an important decision, figuring out what they need to do to move forward. The falling action happens after the climax as the conflict starts to be resolved, and the resolution is the end where everything kind of falls into place and the reader is left with some sense of, okay, that was a story, and this is what the characters learned, this is how they were able to overcome their problems. Another way to think of it, if the chart was too confusing, is think of it like a roller coaster. So the exposition down at the bottom, when you're just getting on the ride and you're getting started and you have that excitement, you're looking around, you're seeing how the roller coaster is set up, the rising action, building up, building up, building up, all the way to the top, the climax, that most important point of anticipation, because when you're at the top of a roller coaster, that's as high as you're going to be, right? That's like that crucial moment where you're like, oh my gosh, it's really happening. The falling action, as everything kind of starts to fall into place and you're just enjoying the story, you're enjoying how everything is fitting together. And then the resolution, the ride is over, you had a good time, and in terms of a story, you understand what the character had to go through. You've been on this emotional roller coaster with them. Why is this important? Well, when we're reading a text, when we're understanding a story, we read to understand how the plot moves the characters forward. You know, because it's important for us to understand the characters and their motivations and how the author describes them. But we also want to see how the main character grows and changes as the result of their experiences. So, going on this journey with them, even if it's a very simple one, we like to see that change. And that's what can lead us to understanding the theme, or the overall message that the author is getting across. So, to tie all of that together, we're going to look at a text on Teams called My Favorite Chaperone. It's the story about a teenager whose family has immigrated to the United States. You'll read about the unique challenges she faces as she attempts to resolve the conflict. So let's head over to Teams and take a look at this text together.